well, I've already mentioned this, the pridefulness that goes into our workforce, that all of a sudden there's a resurgence of pride and a sense of ownership. And these are just some of the examples down at the beach that just recently that's been done. And it doesn't just happen, it happens because the executive team instills these sense of values in their employees, and then they grab that and they run with it. So this is a holistic approach. It doesn't just happen, and I salute our executive staff for getting people to rethink their jobs. It's not just a matter of, I'm going to get my paycheck. It's about, take pride. There's a reason we look different than Oxnard. There's a reason, and you should take pride in that. And I think that's what's going on, and we certainly want to continue to encourage it. We talked about the pedestrian safety. I won't go through it in detail, but we do have a game plan for the city at large. And we started very modestly with things that we could pick off immediately. But, and this was something that, again, the Public Works and our police department jumped on the program when this council expressed an interest to see this happen. They weren't directed to do one thing or another. They just simply took it upon themselves to start the process. So that's, self-initiative. So, challenges, employee retention. We do have a quality workforce, and it is going to be a challenge because of the cost and quality issues. Accomplishments. There was thought that if we outsource our landscape crews to a private contractor, there could be significant savings. But you know what we found out? The savings would be so minute, it certainly would not substitute for a sense of ownership, prideful work, and the quality that's produced by our landscape crews. So I'm pleased to say that we proved ourselves wrong. And I'm glad on a personal level, because we got a huge investment in our public streetscapes, and there's a reason we did that, and that's that whole differentiating ourselves from our neighbors. Matrix management, that just means that we need to, again, kind of erase the lines that divide our organization and our operating units so that we get maximum benefit from those resources. Unfinished business, well, kind of all gets back to money, doesn't it? And we've got to find, a way to eliminate that deficit altogether. One of the thinkings was to engage our workforce in a concept of linking wages to performance to the extent that we succeed, you succeed. And trying to get that kind of a system in place that as we go through down periods, we all contract. But at the same time, when we're enjoying an upward climb in our financial condition, you should benefit. So that's an ideal. Whether we'll get there, I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm rating this a B+, because there's always room for improvement. But I am so happy to see the kind of ownership that I am out there in the workforce. Community policing. Well, I've already kind of talked about this, the HEART program and the Explorers program. There's no question having a police department that's under the city's control as part of the community, a hometown service, is of great benefit. I don't think anybody would dispute that. The statistics are pretty impressive. I don't know if that's the result of community policing, but we have seen a reduction in crime over the last couple of years. So kudos to our law enforcement. But community policing comes at a cost. Salaries and benefits consume about 2/3 of the city's operating budget, and the police department consumes 46% of the overall departmental costs. So you can't run from the reality of the situation. The chart to the right represents how we stack up compared to the other law enforcement agencies in terms of compensation. We're doing pretty good. But can we sustain that? And so that's why, come November 2018, I suspect we'll have one or more ballot measures that's really going to let the people decide, do you want to continue, are you willing to pay for the retention of a hometown police force? So the challenges, we got labor negotiations, employee retention. In order to make these things happen, we got to come to agreement. Accomplishments, lower crime. Clearly, there's this sense of, again, pride of reaching out to the community, and the police in particular with their HEART program and their Explorer program that really, kind of breaks down the barrier, the artificial barrier between the cop and the citizen. So I think that's, again, kudos to our management for that. Things left to be done, I think I already mentioned, the cost-performance linkage. If we could get there, we'd be in a better place down the road. So I'm giving this A-. I say A- because we've got, again, Carmen is leaving, and it's going to have an impact on how do we internally continue to operate as a team. And that's not a negative reflection on the police department. It's a reality of the organization itself at large.
Okay, now we turn our attention to performance. It's one thing to dream big, it's another thing to deliver on those promises. So let's take a look at how we're doing in that regard. First, we need to understand who we are, what we have to offer, and what we have to overcome. In terms of constraints, Port Hueneme is the only city in Ventura County that doesn't have direct highway access. We have a limited purchasing power. That is, a good share of our population are in the low and moderate income range, and so there's not a lot of disposable income. And then half of our market area is in the Pacific Ocean. Then we have the Navy. Everybody would agree that the Navy is an economic machine to this county. On a region-wide basis, nobody would question that. However, locally, that's not necessarily the case. The Navy base represents about half of the city's total land area, and that land area is non-taxable. And then there are a lot of retail sales activity that occurs on the Navy base, but sales taxes are not charged. And then finally, there's a provision that allows military contractors, even though they're not directly affiliated with the military service, but if they're doing business with the Navy, when they come out to do their consulting projects or other endeavors, and they stay in local hotels, they don't have to pay hotel occupancy taxes. So all those dynamics result in that we have no big ticket retailers. Things like a Costco or auto dealerships. Because of those dynamics, we're isolated. We don't have favorable demographics and the like. We don't have the ability to cultivate these high sales tax generating operations that other communities rely upon as their economic revenue machine. But let's take a look at the other side of that coin. Let's see if we can turn lemon into lemonade. What we do have to offer is our environment, and for that matter, our location. We are out of the beaten path. A lot of people like that. We do have the benefit of ocean influence in terms of climate, and of course we have a wonderful beach. So taking advantage of those opportunities, we are looking to attract emerging industries. One of those is the cannabis medicinal industry and the forthcoming recreational industry. These are industries that don't rely upon traditional market dynamics. We also need to take a look at asset utilization. We have such a wonderful facility at Hueneme Beach. We all long for the ability to capture a tourist trade, but are we really doing a good enough job to advantage ourselves because of that asset? Visitor serving uses, as like I say with the beach, are we really being able to capture the economic value of having a visitor attracting amenity? And then finally, business in general. We have approaching a 25% vacancy in our stick and mortar business outlets on our main thoroughfares. 25% is a high percentage of vacancy, and I think the city has determined that it's in our best interest to see if we can market ourselves as being a niche area and backfill those spaces. So, what are our challenges when it comes to economic development? Well, I've already talked about market support and our meager purchasing power dynamics, and we have a limited land area. We're basically built out. Now, in terms of accomplishments, we've recognizing those limitations as well as what does it advantage us to do in terms of attracting users that would like to be in a location that's out off the beaten path and offers these amenities and this coastal climate. We've also adopted, in front of other communities in Ventura County, a medicinal cannabis ordinance that allows us to capture a trade that isn't dependent upon those traditional market dynamics. Now, we do have unfinished business to contend with. We still have a number of city-owned properties that are worthy of reusing, repositioning, making higher and better use of. We are in the process of doing so through requests for proposals and outreach to developers. That's a work in progress. And we have storefront vacancies, as I mentioned before, approaching 25%. So we got a lot of space, built space, that we need to backfill the vacancies that currently exist. Overall, I give this a B+ rating because we are making inroads. And we have a plan of action, and so there's more to be done, and we're on the upward climb. So I give it a plus rating on top of it being a B assessment. Now we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about asset utilization. That is land and buildings and facilities that the city owns or controls and has the ability to make a higher and better use of. We have a number of properties that are identified in green on this particular graphic that the city can make available for sale or for lease, and they're being marketed at this very point in time. Two of the properties, that's those that are highlighted in red, in fact, have been entered into exclusive negotiations. We have received favorable developer responses, and the council has authorized that we enter into an exclusive period to negotiate with those particular entities. And then finally, we have Hueneme Beach, our single biggest asset. And Hueneme Beach has plenty of opportunity for a higher intense use to not only attract more visitors, but more importantly, to retain the economic activity that results from that attraction. And this is a slide showing Hueneme Beach. The map on the top side of this slide represents the original master plan that was adopted some 40 years ago. And there are three areas of the beach that have yet to be fully developed. There's the east end of Hueneme Beach, which is adjacent to the J Street Canal and Ormond Beach. It was originally envisioned as a more active, intense area. In fact, at one time, an RV resort was proposed for that area. Those things have not come to pass, but it's worthy to revisit what can be done with that area that could add to the economic value of Hueneme. Then the area in yellow represents the center beach portion of our park, and there are a number of vacant areas and underutilized parking that could be put to higher and better use, whether it's retail activity or visitor serving hotel types of uses. It was always envisioned to be a developed area of the beach. And then finally, at the far west end, area highlighted in red, this is where the city controls several parcels that have ocean views. Beach proximity seems to be ideally suited for a visitor serving use, and the city in fact has entered into exclusive negotiations with a hotel developer for that area of the beach. The graphic at the bottom end of the chart it looks at a different alternative. If folks are not interested in making a higher and more intense use of Hueneme Beach because they live in proximity to the area and enjoy the fact that it isn't a major regional attractor, then the alternative is to allow them the opportunity to retain it in its current condition, but that comes at a price. Beach assessments for the value-added benefit of being proximate to the beach, and for that matter, to accumulate resources to backfill or prevent a shoreline erosion that will continue to be a plague on the city.